Check this out, BCM Writer here, bringing you another Commander deck tech, and today we're looking at Duggan, Private Detective. We're in the Simic colors, because he's from the Doctor Who set, and most of them were detectives. We're going to do something that's called Who-dunnit. So, we're going to create clue tokens by investigating. So, basically, we're going to be drawing lots of cards. That way we can create very unique board states and have a whole bunch of different interactions just by drawing cards. Duggan's power and toughness are going to be equal to the number of cards in your hand, and anytime he enters the battlefield or attacks, we get to investigate. We get to put a colorless artifact clue token on the battlefield with the activated ability of paying 2 colors, sacrificing that artifact to draw a card. It also has a very good activated ability. For a colorless and a green, we can deal damage to twice his power to another target creature. This is going to help us deal with our opponent's creatures just by killing them, just by drawing cards. Let's get right into this. First up are all the creatures. All these creatures are either going to create clue tokens for us, have synergies with clue tokens or artifacts, and really capitalize on just drawing cards overall. So first up, we have Lonus, Cryptozoologist. He has a really good static ability. Anytime another non-token creature enters the battlefield under our control, we get to create clue tokens. Or we can activate them, sacrifice any number of clues, and then target opponent reveals the top X cards of their library, and we can put any non-land permanent card with mana value X or less onto the battlefield under our control. Now we have Jolreel, Munwolvi Recluse. She has a good static ability. Anytime we draw our second card each turn, we get to create a 2/2 cat token. So we're going to create creatures with this card. And her activated ability for 4 colorless and 2 green. Until end of turn, creatures will have base power and toughness of X, where X is the number of cards in our hand. So the more cards we have, the bigger all our creatures are going to be. Now we have Piper Wright, Public Reporter. Anytime she deals combat damage, we get to investigate that many times. And then anytime we sacrifice a clue, we get to put a +1 counter on target creature. Now we have Martha Jones. When she enters the battlefield, we get to investigate. So we get to create even more clue tokens. And then anytime we sacrifice a clue, another target creature can't be blocked that turn. Now we have Senator Peacock. She has a unique static ability where every single artifact will be a clue in addition to its other types. So it doesn't matter what the artifact is, we can sacrifice that artifact to draw a card. And then anytime we sacrifice a clue, target creature cannot be blocked that turn. Now we have Kellen, Inquisitor Prodigy. He's a 3/4 with flying and vigilance, and whenever he attacks, we get to destroy another target artifact. And if it was a permanent, we get to draw a card. He also has a adventure that we can cast as a sorcery. We get to investigate and then play a additional land that turn. Now we have Adrix and Nev, Twin Casters. This is Ward, so our opponents will have to pay 2 colors just to target this. And then if one or more tokens would be created under our control, we create twice that many instead. Now we have Prime Speaker Zagana. She's going to enter the battlefield with X counters on her, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. So if we drew lots of cards by sacrificing clues to put +1 counters on creatures, when she enters, she's going to enter very, very large. And then when she does enter, we get to draw cards equal to that creature's power. So the bigger the creature, the more cards you're going to draw. Now we have Soramaro, First the Dream. His power and toughness will be equal to the number of cards we have in our hand. He also has flying. Then we can pay 4, return a land we control, just to draw a card. Kind of like Erdwall Illuminator. This is a 1/3 with flying, and anytime we investigate the first time, we get to investigate a additional time. And because we're making tokens, we have Academy Manufacturer. If we would create a clue, a food, or a treasure, we create one of each. Now we have Forensic Gadgeteer. Anytime we cast an artifact spell, we get to investigate. And activated abilities of artifacts will cost 1 less to activate, because Clue tokens cost 2. He's going to reduce that activation cost by 1, making it even easier to draw more cards. Now we have Detective of the Month. This has Ascend. So if we have the City's Blessing or control 10 or more permanents, for the rest of the game, we'll have the City's Blessing. As long as we have the City's Blessing, all detectives cannot be blocked. And then anytime we draw our second card each turn, we can create a 2/2 white and blue detective token. Now we have Graph Mole. Anytime we sacrifice a clue, we get to gain 3 life. So not only are we going to be creating lots of tokens, we're going to be gaining lots of life and drawing a lot of cards. And that's pretty much the whole premise. Now we have my personal favorite with Tireless Tracker. This has landfall, so anytime a land enters the battlefield, we get to create a clue token. And then anytime we sacrifice a clue, we get to put a +1 counter on Tireless Tracker. Now we have Reclamation Sage. When she enters the battlefield, we get to destroy target artifact or enchantment. And in case something gets destroyed, we have Eternal Witness. When she enters the battlefield, we get to return any card from our graveyard back to our hand. And because most of these creatures have really good enter the battlefield abilities, we have Displacer Kitten. This has Avoidance. Anytime we cast a non-creature spell, we can blink out another non-land permanent. Now we have Ethereal Investigator. This is a 2/3 flyer. When he enters the battlefield, we get to investigate X times, where X is the number of opponents we have. And then anytime you draw your second card each turn, you get to create a 1/1 spirit with flying. Now we got a fun one. We have 20-Toed Toad. He'll change our maximum hand size to 20. So that's pretty good. It's not like Reliquary Tower or Spellbook where you don't have a maximum hand size, but for a creature, that's pretty good. And anytime you attack with 2 or more creatures, we get to put a +1 counter on 20-Toed Toad, and we get to draw a card. Then, whenever he attacks, we win the game if there are 20 or more counters, or we have 20 or more cards in hand. And chances are, because we're going to be drawing so many cards, we're probably going to have more than 20 cards in our hand. So, effectively, we can win the game on the spot, just with this guy. Now we have the iconic Psychosis Crawler. All these creatures are going to synergize very well with drawing cards or having the cards in our hand. But with Psychosis Crawler, his power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in our hand, and then anytime we draw a card, each opponent will lose 1 life. Now we have Wave Sifter. This is a 3/2 with flying. When he enters the battlefield, we get to investigate twice. He also has Evoke. He'll enter the battlefield, then we sacrifice it. But you still get that enter the battlefield trigger. Now we have Overbeing a Myth. His power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in our hand, and every single draw step, we get to draw a additional card. Now we have Sturmgeist. His power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in our hand. He does have flying, and then anytime he deals combat damage, we get to draw a card. And of course, we definitely have Consecrated Sphinx. Anytime our opponent would draw a card, we get to draw 2 cards. Now we have a fun one. We have Progenitor Mimic. You can have Progenitor Mimic enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature, and that creature will gain at the beginning of your upkeep. If that creature is not a token, you get to create a token copy of that creature. So we're going to use this to create token copies of these really powerful cards, such as Consecrated Sphinx or some other one. Now we have Junkwinder. This does cost 7 mana for a 5/6, but he has affinity for tokens. He'll cost 1 colorless less to cast for each token you control, and because we're going to be investigating many times, we can basically cast this for 2 blue mana. And then anytime a token would enter the battlefield, we get to tap down target permanent a opponent controls, and that permanent won't untap during the next untap step. Now we have Displaced Dinosaurs. Anytime a historic permanent enters the battlefield, it'll become a 7/7 dinosaur. So all these clue tokens are going to enter basically as 7/7 dinosaurs. That way we can end the game very quickly. Now we have Tangle Trove Kelp. This has Ward as well. So for 2 colorless, our opponents have to pay in order to target this. It's a 6/6, and then at the beginning of every single combat, all our clues are going to become 6/6 plant tokens. Or you can pay 2 colorless, sacrifice this to draw a card. We do have 2 planeswalkers that are going to help us out. So we have Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. He'll enter with 4 loyalty counters on him and has a static effect. Anytime we draw a card, we can put a loyalty counter on him. Then we can activate him for 0 to draw a card. Or -2, we can create a 2/2 blue spirit token with the static effect. Anytime we draw a card, we put a +1 counter on that creature. And then -12, target opponent will choose a permanent they control, and they'll have to return every other permanent back to their hand. Then they shuffle each non-land permanent they control into their library. Now we have Mordenkainen. He'll enter with 5 loyalty counters on him. When we +2 him, we get to draw 2 cards, and then we put a card from our hand at the bottom of our library. For -2, we get to create a blue dog illusion creature where its power and toughness are twice the number of cards in our hand. And then -10, we can exchange our hand in the library, and then we get an emblem where we have no hand size. So you're ultimately drawing your entire deck. Okay, let's get into the artifacts. There's not very many. We have Soul Ring, we have Talisman of Curiosity, and Arcane Signet as our 3 mana rocks. Now we have Elixir of Immortality. This is a good way to shuffle your graveyard back into your library. That way you can protect your graveyard and continually cast these spells over and over. Now we have a fun equipment for good old Duggan. We have Imperial Plate. The equipped creature will get +1/+1 for each card in your hand. And because we're going to be drawing lots of cards, we have the Water Crystal. This is a cost reduction for all our blue spells. If an opponent would mill 1 or more cards, they mill that many cards +4. Then you can activate it for 4 colorless and 2 blue. Then each opponent will mill cards equal to the number of cards in your hand. Like I said, the more cards you have in your hand, the worse it's going to be for your opponents. Now we have 500-Year Diary. This is going to enter the battlefield tapped. So add a blue mana for each clue token you control. So basically this is kind of like a pseudo Tolarian Academy. Or you can pay 2 colorless, sacrifice it to draw a card. Okay, let's get into the enchantments. All these enchantments are going to synergize very well with drawing cards or all these clue tokens. So first up we have Wizard class. We have no maximum hand size. Having no maximum hand size or an increased hand size is very important for this build. Then when you go to level 2, you get to draw 2 cards. And level 3, whenever you draw a card, you get to put a +1 counter on any creature you control. Now we have Proph's Eidetic Memory. When it enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card. We have no maximum hand size as well. And every single combat, if we've drawn more than 1 card that turn, we get to put X counters on target creature, where X is the number of cards you drew that turn. Now we have On the Trail. Whenever we draw our 2nd card each turn, we can put a land from our hand on the battlefield tapped. Now we have 3 very powerful ones that synergize with drawing cards, like Psychic Corrosion. Anytime we draw a card, each opponent will mill 2. These are all going to synergize with the Water Crystal as well. When they mill 2 cards, they're ultimately going to mill 8 cards. Similar to that, we have Teferi's Tutelage. When this enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card and then discard. And then anytime we draw a card, target opponent will mill 2. But this is probably the most powerful one, with Sphinx's Tutelage. Anytime we draw a card, target opponent will mill 2 cards. And then if those cards share the same color, you repeat this process. This is absolutely ridiculous with the Water Crystal. I'm going to mill 6 cards, and chances are within those 6 cards that were milled, they're going to share a color. So they're going to keep repeating this process. And for 5 colors and a blue, we can draw a card, then discard, if we really need to. Okay, let's get into the instants. First up, we have Confront the Unknown. We get to investigate, then target creature will get +1/+1 for each clue token we control. Now we have Secrets of the Key. We're going to investigate, and then if this spell was cast from our graveyard, because it does have flashback, we get to investigate twice instead. Now we have Deduce. We get to draw a card, then investigate. So ultimately, for 2 mana, we get to draw a card, and then create another way to draw a additional card. Now we have Growth Spiral. We get to draw a card, then put a land from our hand on the battlefield. Now we need to protect our board, so we have Heroic Intervention. Now we have some cards that are going to synergize with the creatures that have the really good enter the battlefield triggers. So we have Blur. We're going to exile target creature we control and then return it back to the battlefield. This is what's called Blinking, but this is also a cantrip. So not only do we get to blink out the creature, we get to draw a card as well. Now we have my personal favorite with Ghostly Flicker. We can exile 2 target artifacts, creatures, or lands, and then return them back to the battlefield. Now we have Displace. We can exile up to 2 target creatures we control and return them back to the battlefield. We have some counter spells. So we have Counterspell. Now we have Arcane Denial. We get to counter target spell, and then at the beginning of the next upkeep, your opponent has to draw 2 cards, and you get to draw a card. This is going to be a very good way to deal with a opponent's spell while forcing them to draw cards when they don't want to, and you still get to draw a card anyway. Now we have Rewind. You get to counter target spell, and then untap 4 lands. Now we have Confirmed Suspicions. We're going to counter target spell, then investigate 3 times. This is kind of on the higher scale for mana cost for a counterspell, but the fact we get to investigate 3 times is going to be very beneficial for this build. Now we got some removal. So we have Beast Within. We get to destroy target permanent, and its controller creates a 3/3 green beast token. You can even target your own stuff if you really need to. Of course, we have Cyclonic Rift. We get to return target non-land permanent we don't own, and if we pay its overload cost, you get to do this for each non-land permanent you don't control. Okay, let's get into the sorceries. Most of these are just ways to put lands on the battlefield. That way we can get ahead of our opponents. So we have Farseek. To search your library for either a plains, an island, a swamp, or a mountain card and put it on the battlefield. Now we have Nature's Lore. You get to search for a forest card and put it on the battlefield. Similar to that, we have 3 visits. You get to search for a forest card and put it on the battlefield. Now we have Cultivate. You get to search for up to 2 basic lands. One goes on the battlefield tapped. The other goes into your hand. Now we have Kanama's Reach. Same thing. Search your library for up to 2 basics. One goes on the battlefield tapped. The other goes into your hand. That way you can put it on the battlefield later on. Now we have kind of a Simic Wrath of God. Instead of destroying all creatures, you're going to exile all creatures, and then each player will create a fractal token, which will enter with +1 counters on that creature equal to the number of creatures that were exiled. Okay, let's get into the land base. This is a very simple land base. We have our command tower, our breeding pool, our Dream Root Cascade, our check land with Hinterland Harbor. Now we have Lush Oasis. This is a desert. It will enter tapped, but when it does enter, it'll deal 1 damage to target opponent. Now we have Simic Growth Chamber. This is what's called a Karoo land. It enters tapped, but you have to return a land when it enters the battlefield back to your hand. But it will provide 2 mana for you. Now we have Fable Passage, get whatever basic we want. Mirrored Landscape. This will enter tapped, but when you activate it, you get to search for up to 2 basics and put them on the battlefield. Now we have Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds. These are just basic fetch lands. Now we have Desert of the Indomitable. This is a very specific land type with Desert because we're running a very specific land that we're going to use against our opponents. This is a cycling land, so for a colorless like green, you can discard this to draw a card if you really need it. Similar to that, we have Desert of the Mindful. Same thing, just blue. Now we have Archway of Innovation. This will enter tapped unless you control an island, but has a really cool activated ability where the next spell you cast that turn have improvise. So you can use all your clue tokens to help reduce the cost of that spell. And because we're drawing lots of cards, we have Reliquary Tower. It'll tap for colorless, and you have no maximum hand size. Now we have Arid Archway. This will enter tapped, but when it enters the battlefield, we have to return another land back to our hand. And if it was a desert, we get to Surveil 1. It'll tap for 2 colorless mana. Now we have some lands that'll deal with our opponents. So we have Field of Ruin. We can pay 2, sacrifice it, destroy target non-basic land, and then each player will search their library for a land and put it on the battlefield. Now we have Tectonic Edge. This is kind of like a wasteland. We can sacrifice it to destroy target non-basic land the opponent controls, but only if they control 4 or more lands. Now we have a fun one. We have Ghost Quarter. We can sacrifice this to destroy target land, and its controller searches for a basic and puts it on the battlefield. You can even target your own lands if you really want to. And the reason we're playing so many deserts is because of Scavenger Grounds. You can pay 2, sacrifice a desert specifically, to exile all cards from graveyards. Because we're going to be milling our opponents, why not just exile their graveyard? That way they can't get it back. We have 8 forests and 8 islands. And that was the Commander deck tech for Duggan Private Detective. I really hope you guys enjoyed this investigate, clue, whodunit, let's draw a whole lot of cards type build. This is a very fun deck. And if you guys have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll leave the link to the deck list for Moxfield in the comments like always. But until next time, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share these videos, and I'll see you in the next one.